Hello, guys, and welcome to Daddy Share Space. So, here I'm working on my 1991 Saab. Back when I was working on the truck, this vehicle started to overheat, and so I just kind of set the project to the side for a while to try to get my mind right to work on it. That's one of the downfalls to having older cars. They can break down at any time, and I'm not really in the mindset to where I want to spend money on a new car, so I'm breaking this thing down to try to see if I could figure out what's wrong with it. So, one of the things that I discovered was the coolant level was really low, obviously. And when I went to refill the coolant, I had the fluid just pour out right around where the water pump connects to the manifold. So, as a result of that, I did my research. I looked online. I found a retailer that had the water pump for sale. So I went ahead and ordered it online, had it shipped out. I also bought another thermostat, and the water pump said that it was supposed to come with the gaskets that were required for this particular repair. I'm hoping that it is simply just the water pump that needs to be replaced and that, I didn't basically throw a rod. If, regardless of whatever the case may be, I'm going to tear this car down, get to the point to where I can put the water pump on. In this video, I'm actually taking the water or taking all the components off that I need to take off to remove the water pump. And actually, at the time of the recording of this video, I've actually already reinstalled the water pump and have come to the conclusion it's basically still leaking around the same area. Later in the video, you'll actually see where when I took the water pump out, the metal on metal connection, it's like a rectangular connection, is perfectly clean. There doesn't appear to be any kind of gasket material in that area. And when I actually received the water pump, it didn't have a gasket for that area. It had a couple rubber gaskets for other areas on the device, and it also had like a little thin cardboard gasket to attach the impeller to the actual water pump, which I installed all of those things. However, once I got the car back together, I still had water because basically I poured water in to check to make sure it was holding, and the water just poured out on the ground right around the same area that it was pouring out before. So this leads me to conclude that either I need to use a type of gasket material like that the silicone, and try to seal it up in that way. But it just seems surprising to me. I've never put together two metal on metal parts that actually contain fluid without some form of a gasket in between. And I didn't see any kind of residue as far as any kind of like silicone sealant. And I have the manual for this particular vehicle. And when I looked in there, I didn't see any reference to there being a gasket or any direction to apply like the silicone sealer to that area. So I'm actually going to take this car back apart and try that that step, basically where I apply a degree of the tube silicone to see if that will seal it up. My concern with that is, will that hold up under pressure and under temperature changes and such? Because, since I didn't see any of that kind of connection there in the first place, and I haven't found any kind of direction that told me that I needed to put that there, it just seemed to me that there should be some form of a physical gasket that would fit on there to protect the metal on metal contact, and then you would put the silicone gasket or the silicone on that piece of gasket. So I actually went up to my local AutoZone and I asked them if they had any kind of material that is for gaskets, like if you wanted to create your own gasket. I'm not sure where you could pick something up like that up, because what I would do is actually lay that down on, well, actually, I would put some tracing paper down on the water pump, trace out my actual dimensions, and then I would trace that out on, said material, cut it out myself and make my own gasket. However, I'm not quite sure where I would find anything like that. But for right now, I'm probably just going to take it right back apart as you see me doing here in the video and then I'm going to apply the bead of silicone and see if that, seals it all up and if it operates. As I said before, my hope is to not have to buy another car. I actually just recently bought tires for this car, so I really do not want to give up on it at this time. Now, granted, to be quite frank, I paid $2,000 for this car about 12 or 13 years ago. So obviously, I've gotten my money's worth, to have it for so long, and it's still and it getting me to this point. But the reality of the matter is, I'm just not into wanting to buy a new car. That's just not my thing. So I will tear the car down. We'll see what happens. Even if I'm unsuccessful at being able to fix the actual water pump or fix this problem, whatever it is, because the main issue is I don't feel like I can't fix the problem. The issue is it's a 33-year-old vehicle and I'm not going to be able to find parts for it, or it's going to be very difficult for me to find parts for it. So if anything that is non-replaceable is damaged, then that's it for this car. So I've already bought engine hoist. I'm actually looking into buying an engine stand, and because I want to kind of build up my DIY skills in auto mechanics, what I may do before, if this is end of life for this particular vehicle, I'm pretty much going to totally disassemble it. Meaning, I'm gonna pull the radiator, I'm gonna pull, all of the mechanical components. I'm gonna pull the engine out itself and actually dismantle the engine because I want to understand more about how it functions. I understand in theory, but I've never actually opened an engine all the way up. And I find that usually when I look at a task, I get intimidated. But then once I do it, I become, encouraged and I actually become confident, i.e., like when I took the water pump off, I misplaced I thought I had misplaced some of the bolts, but fortunately, my wife was there and she was kind of recording a little bit of the footage. And so I went back and looked at the footage and I was able to retrace my steps and find the bolts to actually reassemble the vehicle. However, now that I have it reassembled, or once I put it back together, I just felt completely confident at being able to obviously take it back off. And I feel like the process will be a lot smoother than it was the first time. So that, the downfall to being a DIY person is the fact that you don't do this stuff enough to be super proficient at it. The upside, obviously, is the fact that by working on your own vehicles all the time or working on you, whether it be your home, your lawn, you do save yourself some degree of overhead because at the end of the day, there are people out here that will scam you. I've been scammed myself. I've, lost money that I shouldn't have lost because I was not educated as to how people would actually kind of misguide you or mislead you to get extra funds out of your account. So once I learned that this car was basically broke down, that leaves us down to one car, and that being a used car, and it being a 2003, so it's 21 years old. I've been looking for a potential um, second or third car so that we have a little bit more flexibility. And I've been looking around, but I haven't seen anything that I am interested in right now. And at this time, you can buy a car new, used, whatever, and have problems. And so my mindset is to choose something that I feel confident that I can repair. So that would not be a brand new vehicle with all electronics in them to where, the owner cannot repair it. For as long as we have these older cars, I'm going to be driving them because I just feel like it's more economical in the long run. Now, DIY, it takes up a lot of your time, and I have to kind of keep trying to re-encourage myself because every time I turn around, there's something just like this car. I mean, I thought I was coming home to do woodworking several Fridays ago. This is months ago, and I had to change brakes, and it ended up, being a longer job than I expected. And during that time is when I learned that this car was down. And I tried to, keep my wits about me and stay on track because I was doing a bunch of YouTube videos dang near every day. but I think my quality was dropping off. And then also, it felt like I was working two jobs because I was doing like, 8 hours worth of either recording, video editing, or whatever on top of my 8 hour job. And I wasn't spending, enough time with with my family in attempts to try to continue to keep all these balls juggling in the air. And sometimes life just doesn't let up, it doesn't allow you to take a breath. It's kind of like, a game of tennis or something like that where, obstacles keep coming at you. And I've noticed that as I've gotten older, it's more and more obstacles all the time. And I have to just figure out new ways to manage them. And as I've gotten older, I know now when to just sit down. And so I took some time, and I sat down and didn't make any videos, didn't really do much of anything while I sat down and tried to recalibrate and get my mind back right and try to figure out, what's most important. I enjoy making YouTube content. I enjoy doing these things, but mainly, like I said, this is called Daddy Share Space. And my whole goal is really to try to inspire people that are very similar to me, people that have a mind and a heart to want to do things themselves, for whether it be for knowledge or whatever. And I'm trying with all that's in me to make these things my pleasure, as opposed to doing it out of obligation. I want to do it because I want to do it. And that's the same thing even with the woodworking. I didn't choose it because I love wood or I loved, building things. I chose it because it's a productive and constructive thing to do. And just like on my, like any kind of work, it's easy to put work down. It's not as easy to put something down that you really like, whether it be sweets or your favorite whatever, that type of stuff, you kind of got to be forced to put down. But work is easy to put down. But I try to make myself work longer and longer and harder so that, there's actually something to be gained by it. Because I do believe, just like the Bible says, that all work does produce some degree of a profit. It may not be the profit that you're hoping for or that you're expecting, but there will be some degree of a profit that comes. And so, as you can see here, I got that water pump off, so that's success. I didn't record putting it back on. However, I probably am going to re-record taking it off and record putting it back on, and I'll keep you guys updated to see if it works. Anyways, guys, thanks for checking out the video, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care.